again, the technical definition of a recession is two back-to-back quarters of contracting growth. In other words, the economy shrinking. So you would have to get that together fairly rapidly in order to see a recession materialize in 2019. It has been done, and sometimes we don't know it until after the fact. But that's the history on these sort of things. Two market watchers, Greg Valliere and Larry Shover. Larry, what are the odds of an imminent recession then, in your eyes?
In my eyes, they're actually fairly low. I mean, I know I'm going against the grain, but when I look at credit spreads, they're not nearly as wide as they typically are. Profits, corporate profits, and growth GDP here are still there, and I still think we'll see it in 2019. It doesn't necessarily translate to higher stock prices, but I do believe we're pretty far from recession. Also, yield curve, yeah, is it getting close to being inverted? Has it been inverted? Yes, but the real rates are still awfully low. It makes a big difference when you're talking about inversion when real rates are almost negative compared to when they're at 3%. So, no, I think the odds of recession are fairly low for 2019.
All right, an inverted yield curve for those who might not be familiar is when short-term interest rates eclipse those of longer-term rates. We're close to that, but we're not there yet. Greg Valliere, in the middle of all of this uncertainty comes the uncertainty about whether we see a shutdown, a government shutdown, a partial one this Friday. We are learning right now, Greg, that the White House is so far not considering a 1 or 2 week continuing resolution, what's known as a CR, to keep the government lights on. So he's playing hardball. What do you think?
I think we're going to get one, Neil. I think the Democrats are basically sticking with a strategy of blaming him and waiting. The longer you wait, the longer you get a new House, and the new House is going to be much more liberal. So I think the Democrats are perfectly content to wait. I think the president wants to impress his base that he cares about border security, but this is one where both sides are so dug in that I do think we'll have a shutdown.
All right. Now, the question then becomes how long of one, right? And yeah, maybe that this is partial in nature, Greg, and won't have the impact, let's say, of, entitlement programs or Social Security payments that would be frozen or delayed or both. It won't have quite the same impact.
No, but because of that, I think it could last for a while. It could last for two, 3, 4 weeks. I don't see this having a big impact on the market. I think Jay Powell's press conference in a couple of days is more important than the shutdown, but it's not a positive story.
All right, Larry, let's say it does drag on for a few weeks. I think a lot of people, because this would not be among the more severe shutdowns, and maybe because Americans have kind of, sadly, I guess, with both parties gotten used to this sort of thing, that the impact won't be that dramatic. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Greg on this one. I don't think it's dramatic. I think it's just one more tweet. It's one more thing that people are overlooking. People are more interested in growth and growth prospects, what the Fed's going to do, inflation expectations, trade. I mean, unless China and U.S. see eye to eye, and pretty soon, or at least in 2019, we're in big trouble. So I think a government shutdown, people aren't even looking at it. It's on the back page of the paper.
Greg, there's been talk that maybe the Federal Reserve not raise rates this week. I don't know how that would be greeted. The Stanley Druckenmiller argument that this is not the time to make a major policy error. His thinking that it would be if they did such a thing this week. But I could flip it around and say if they don't hike, wouldn't the markets read alarm into that?
Yeah, they could say, what does the Fed know that we don't know? But, Neil, there's been 2 really important errors by President Trump. Number one, he fired the most dovish Fed chairman in our lifetime. I think he probably regrets firing Janet Yellen. And number 2, the more he hectors and badgers the Fed into not raising rates, the more they're inclined to do it, just to show that they're independent. I think he should back out and leave this issue alone.
Well, good luck on that. But, Larry, I mean, the presidents are entitled to their point of view. He's not the first one to express it. He is the first to express it so publicly, I guess. But what would the impact, do you think, be if we do get a hike, as largely expected this week?
Well, I think the Fed's in a winless situation here. If they didn't hike, I think there's a chance of a short-term rally, but it'll go right back to where we were because, like you said, what are they doing? If it's status quo, I think that's going to be really bad for the market because there's some interesting wordage that needs to change, especially inflation expectations, 10-year tips, inflation protected. projecting 10-year inflation at 1.5%. I mean, the Fed has to, recognize that and change expectations and change all the wording about further gradual hikes. And that's where it's going to get interesting. It's going to be a tough situation for them.
Yeah, damned if you do, damned if you don't, like you say, gentlemen. Thank you both very, very much.